all very much. I'm very privileged to be here, and I'm throwing out just about every single note that I have. Hear, talk. That's what I think you had up, Daryl. Something like listen, talk, hear, talk. And that's, I think, kind of what I'm about. Here is my message, and I'm going to try to capture it as quickly as I can. As a social scientist, I find myself these days learning the most from humanists. And what I learned from Alfred Case, and a great literary critic, he writes that probably the best way to see the variance of human beings is through literature. The variance of human beings, the difficulty of categorizing people. And from Teju Cole, a wonderful writer, I've learned a marvelous quote that he has: you learn a lot from people from what they omit when you talk to them. And we really have to trace things. We have to trace the world of people as they will omit. So here's my premise. I'm interested really, come on in, there's room here somewhere for you. I'm interested really in what people want out of life, how they define life, what is for them the meaning of life, and the profound things that keep them from getting what they want. So I've been drawn to people living in poverty, I've been drawn to minorities, and just generally people who have the odds stacked against them. Life is unfair for a lot of people. In a world like ours, which is highly psychologically driven, we see their shortcomings. We're taught to see their pathology. I see big, powerful mountains in the society in their way, stacked against them. But this is something else I've learned from a wonderful philosopher by the name of Emmanuel Levinas. I would recommend his readings to you, except you have to floss between every sentence. He's such thick prose, I don't always, it loses a lot in the original for me, quite frankly. So here's one of the things Levinas says: the most responsible thing, the most moral thing anybody can do, and watch the language here, is to discover that they have taken responsibility for another human being. They don't choose it. You don't select it. You don't consciously decide it. You don't will it. You discover that you have now taken responsibility, but only for eternity. So your child is born, and you look at her, as ours was the firstborn was a girl, and in that moment, you are, now watch his language here, you are held hostage by her gaze. You're held hostage. Very provocative words, but what they really mean is, in her eyes and in my eyes, we together will find lodging. Now, that's a lovely metaphor. What it means for me is, without her eyes, I cannot develop the human being that I wish to be. I need you to prove that I am here. Levinas says, you are a weight against which, not as a menace, but by which I measure that I am here. Follow it? I have a story to tell. The story that I tell you is my meaning that I make of the world and us. But I need you. Ours is a false world that pushes self-sufficiency and independence. Think of all the people that are required to put this talk together, the people that build this room, the people that build this university, the various people that didn't kill me driving in tonight. Because as I tell my students all the time, we live in a world of rotaries, and rotaries were designed by people who believe in an afterlife.
They're scary.
They're scary. I have a little bumper sticker that says, I'm Jewish, I'm not sure there's anything after this, so please drive carefully. So, I needed all those people, and look at this. If I'm giving this talk, and you're not here, the campus police come in, they take me to McLean's mental hospital, they say there's an old guy who needs a haircut talking about the need for other people to nobody. So he's clearly insane. Right. So in this world of mutual dependence, which we don't think of often enough, I need you not as menace, but as the witness to my story. And in telling my story and in witnessing a story, we're both transformed. We're both transformed. Here's the story. I've got to say this really quickly. I go back about 30 years to a conference in New Orleans. The conference is about the Holocaust, not the actual Holocaust that took place in Europe, but the television show, The Holocaust, which was a powerful success and actually changed German laws that you could lengthen the time that you could get at some of the criminals in Germany. A rabbi comes up, he's going to be the keynote speaker, and quite frankly, most of us thought, oh goodness me, now we're going to have a sermon, and it isn't even Rosh Hashanah yet before, forgive my cynicism, but this rabbi from Tenafly, New Jersey. His name was Rabbi Tannenbaum from Tenafly, New Jersey. He gave this extraordinary talk, which was nothing more than a story, which we witnessed. And here was his story. He was talking to the men and women, the families that came over, the boat people, during the Vietnam crisis, our crisis in Vietnam. You remember all this? And the boat people were people coming out of the Hmong people, the Cambodians on oceans, and the Vietnamese who were going this direction as the big oil tankers were going in this direction, bringing the resources to the troops, yes? So here are these ships literally passing at night, and the crewmen on the oilers saying, oh, there's one, there's the boat person, there they go. I read about them in the Times, did you see, there they went. At the end of the trip, he interviews these families, and he talks to one family, Cambodian family, Cambodian gentleman, and the gentleman, he says, how was the trip? The man says, it was horrific. He's obviously talking to an interpreter. Why was it terrific? We came with our 5 children. 3 died during the trip. And what to do with them? Besides the emotion, what to do with them? Do we throw them overboard? It's against our religion. What in God's name do we do? And the rabbi says, oh, and the stench, the bodies, is overwhelming the survivors. And the rabbi says, oh my God, this is just absolute. I'm so sorry I asked. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. And the man says, but that wasn't the worst thing. The rabbi says, that wasn't, what was worse? He said, what was worse is that the men on the boat saw us, they pointed at us, they recognized us, and they didn't do a thing. That's not witnessing a story. So we become implicated in these stories, for we're all poets and storytellers if someone will allow us to be. Sometimes in our classes, sometimes in my profession's counseling rooms, I think we no longer hear these stories. We no longer are listening. We're so eager to advance our theory, our observations, our interpretations, our hermeneutics, call it what you will, our exegesis. We don't listen to the very people who may in that moment say, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Here is my story. My father used to say, it's not life and death, it's not worth doing. Easy for him, he was a physician. But I think he's right. He also said, which is kind of nifty, if money is the answer, the question's not profound. I love that. He also said, lead a moral life and you'll go to your grave regretting so many things you didn't do. Okay, so I think we missed the boat in this story thing all too often. We're driven by our theory. We're driven by a culture that likes to pathologize people, my profession. We're listened, well, forgive me, but I'll say it. I think we're in a culture now driven by metrics. I think we need metrics, but sometimes, in my personal opinion, they're pushed so hard, all I can think of when I hear the word metrics is that it's an antacid. Take a metrics, you'll feel a lot better, right? And I don't feel better when the metrics are powerhousing their way through academia, because I feel sometimes a human being and their story will be lost. I come to the conclusion, what is the story then? And what is the witness of the story? It is nothing more and nothing less than a revelation to you and to myself, the author of myself. It's the generation of the self. But I need you as audience to witness this self that I'm authoring. Oh, incidentally, I've got lots of selves. I'm not a multiple personality, but I have multiple identities, and so do you. There's the kid still in me, that's hard for you to believe. There's a little boy still in me who still thinks he can pitch. As a minor league ball player, I know I still have it. My fastball probably go up to about 18, 20 miles an hour, right? But I could be plucky. There's the me that's husband. There's the me that's son to parents who died 3 decades ago. There's a man in me that's still brother to a sister who died 3 years ago. There's a man in me that's grandfather to 5, that's father to 3, that will teach her and some other people in the coming weeks, and that's me too. But again, I need all of you as witness to that for me to discover the self. The very thing that reveals itself, I'm still waiting for his time clue. I used to do television, and boy, the guy that held up the time, he was God, right? And he could just cut you right off. So God, let me know when you have your 3 minutes on me. I should be careful about this. I've got Yom Kippur coming up, and I'm telling Daryl he's God. Wait. Here's this authoring of a self, and it's exactly as Kant said. It's what's revealed to me when I go to author it. When I go to look for it, that's when I see it. But I need your eyes, I need your ears, and probably in the main, I need your love. The responsibility goes for eternity. I say to that child, I am your father forever. As Ted Sizer once remarked, that means I open my heart and my wallet, but that's another story. I open myself, my soul, to you, and hope that you don't have to spend a lot of your life tracing that which I omitted in our friendship. I don't want my children and grandchildren to trace nothing. Okay? Final word on this. I think we missed the boat. I use that metaphor because I think that Cambodian family, they felt the boat was missed. I think the soldiers' well-being, to be sure, I think that boat was missed. And what's that boat again? It's the recognition that you find yourself having taken responsibility for another person. And in that connection, in that attachment, in that conjunction, you discover the person you are. You discover the selves that you long to be. The selves, I would argue with you, with the dean sitting here, that one finds very often in professional schools and most definitely in the pursuit of the liberal education. The pursuit of the liberal education, William James once remarked, allows a person to recognize a virtuous soul. It allows me to recognize a virtuous soul. For me, the virtuous ones are the storytellers as well as the witnesses, because they are both healers and sufferers. And those are two fragments of the same soul that I live with. I am sufferer and I am healer. Teachers heal. Men heal. Women heal. Children heal. If we listen to them, if we'll see them, if we'll hear them. My final word about the children, because Phil mentioned that I work for the great Marion Wright Edelman of the Children's Defense Fund. Without the story, children indeed fall between the cracks. It's one of the ugliest metaphors I've ever heard. No child falls between cracks. You just neglect them. Not you all. We just neglect them. We just don't hear them. We will not bear witness to their being. We will sequester them so that we don't have to see them, hear them, touch them, feel them, smell them. And I'm bothered by that. Because again, in the taking of responsibility, Levinas's notion, the most moral thing that I can do in a relationship where I talk and you listen, and you talk and I listen, and we really genuinely hear one another, we not only discover the most authentic relationship that human beings can experience, we experience justice. And thanks to you and to the Rhett Committee, Daryl. Thank you.
And I think we have enough time for maybe 1, 2 questions for Dr. Cottle. Anybody?